All right, everybody, we are right at noon. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody in that is in the waiting room, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you all for being here for our second installment of this year's Water Ambassador webinar series. And just so you know, Lisa couldn't join us today. She's actually up in Gainesville for a conference. So um, it's just I'm kind of a one-man show right here, sort of running everything in the background and giving the presentation. So bear with me if there's a little bit of a delay. I'm also trying to let everybody in. If people are starting to show up in the waiting room, and I'm just letting everybody in. So just bear with me that way as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through just a quick, if you're joining us for the first time, just gonna take you through just a little housekeeping presentation. Again, this is for the Water Ambassador, Martin County Water Ambassador Program, which is the stormwater education program for Martin County's stormwater program. And this is our offerings so far coming up for 2024. And you could see I'm gonna I copied and pasted all the registration links in the chat. So if you scroll up, if you're joining us right now, if you scroll up in the chat, you'll see all those links. And then this is the flyer for the next set of webinars all the way up till June. We're getting a few of the last ones finalized for July, August, and September, but we are good to go until June. And they are, just so you know, if you're joining us for the first time, we are on the third Tuesday of every month at noon. And for those of you who are here for their FNGLA or Florida Nursery Grower and Landscape Association members, you can apply for 1 unit of CEUs for attending this webinar, and either contact me or Mary Mott from FNGLA. Also, this webinar is currently being recorded, and we will post this on the IFAS Martin County Extension YouTube channel. And the link's there on the slide. I also pasted the link directly in the chat as well. And I haven't set up the 2024 Water Ambassador Program playlist just yet, but I will do that very soon. We had one webinar last month from Yvette Goodiel from here at UFIFAS Extension Martin County, talking about smart irrigation. And then as I get that set up, all those webinars will populate that YouTube playlist as we move forward in 2024. So next slide here, that's the website link for our YouTube channel. Again, that's in the chat. And we will hold all questions until the end of the webinar. Please feel free to ask them anytime though. And what I'll do is after I'm done, I will go back in the chat and go through your questions one by one. So ask at any time, but please use the chat for those questions. And then also, please, if you haven't already, please mute yourself during the presentation. We also recommend that you turn off your video as well, mainly just for your own web bandwidth for being able to watch the webinar. We recommend that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, I am your webinar presenter today. I'm Vincent Encomio. I'm a Florida Sea Grant County Extension Agent for Martin and St. Lucie counties in the Florida Sea Grant program, and also under UF IFAS Extension, based right here in Martin County. So I'm going to talk about some of the work that I've been doing related to living shorelines, and specifically on how the public as citizen scientists can get involved in some of the work that I'm currently doing with other researchers from UCF, Florida Sea Grant, University of Florida, and also describe what other things I'm doing with living shorelines. So I've been working in that sort of space for the last number of years, and also as part of my current duties as a Sea Grant County Extension Agent, also involved in efforts such as this, the Water Ambassador Program, to educate residents in Martin County about stormwater impacts, but also to encourage residents to adopt estuary-friendly practices to reduce those impacts. And the work I'm going to describe today also sort of speaks to that, and how living shorelines can help improve water quality for our local waterways. So with that, I'll get started here in my presentation. So the title is Shoreline Characterization of the Indian River Lagoon, How Citizen Science Can Inform Living Shorelines Restoration. I also wanted to point out this presentation really is part one of some colleagues' work from the University of Central Florida. They will be presenting the part two of this general topic in April. So watch out for that. I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're doing on the ground with volunteers, and as pictured in the opening slide here, with local youth, with regards to collecting data that can be used for later suitability modeling for living shorelines. And my colleagues at University of Central Florida are going to speak about those modeling efforts and how that data, how volunteer data can be used to help inform how we do restorations, where we should prioritize them. But if this is a new topic to you, we really start by looking at how we are developing our shorelines. And currently, if you're familiar with seawalls and bulkheads and things of that nature, and how we harden the shorelines, and typically about 14% of our shorelines in the US are hardened. And if you train your eye over to the bottom right corner where you see Florida, you can see some of them are quite extensively hardened. This is a county based map, and if you look on that really red square in Florida, that's actually Broward County. So almost all of Broward County is hardened with seawalls. So those natural waterways and the soft or the natural shorelines in that county are almost non-existent. So going back locally here in Martin County, we actually have quite a bit of hardened shoreline as well, nearly 50% of it. So 14% of all of our shorelines in the US are hardened. A vast majority of that is in the South Atlantic and Gulf Coasts, nearly over 2/3 of that. And at the current rates of coastal development and the rates of shoreline hardening, they're estimated about 1/3 of all the US coastline will be armored by 2100. And in Martin County, as I mentioned, nearly half of our shorelines are hardened, about 69 miles. And this is actually a report, I'm referencing a report from, I think, 2014 or 15, I believe, maybe 2016. And so it's a little bit out of date. But at that time, we had about 69 miles of seawall. And sort of also importantly is almost all of that, 95% of those hardened shorelines are residential lots. So we have a lot of work to do with regards to educating people about, especially homeowners, about the impacts of hardening their shorelines, and reaching them to look at what some potential alternatives, nature-based or green alternatives to hardening their shorelines. But the general problem with hardened shorelines is that once you decide to put that seawall in, you are fixing that point. That they're typically put at the mean high water locate edge of this, or what we would designate as the edge of that shoreline, the average high tide zone, and you're fixing that. If you think about water moving back and forth with the tides, really that edge sort of fluctuation goes back and forth depending on how high the tide is, storms, that kind of thing. And by fixing that point where you put that seawall, you are also fixing it in regards to changing conditions like sea level rise, and not only the chronically and slower rising sea levels, but then the more frequent storms that we're typically expecting under a changing climate. So that makes those shorelines less resilient. Those seawalls will eventually fail, with having a very high cost to repair or replace. As you can see in the upper image there, if you get waves overtopping, and we're seeing that a lot in many areas in South Florida, where just sea level rise and king tide flooding is overtopping the tops of these structures. And then that can lead to, and then when you have that combined with the storm, then you could really have severe erosion either occurring behind that structure and also at the base of that structure. So they are eventually going to fail and be very expensive to replace. And ecologically, we've lost that habitat, that transition, that gradual transition from the upland coastal zone through the intertidal zone. We've basically truncated that, and the intertidal zone, in many cases, in a completely hardened shoreline, is the wall itself. So ecologically, we've lost some function there as well. So looking forward to how do we address this, there's been a lot of work across the nation in the idea or the concept of living shorelines. And living shorelines are basically trying in a practice or set of methods to stabilize a shoreline using nature-based elements. So in this graphic here, in the place of a bulkhead or a seawall, we could use what you would find in your natural coastal environment, things like mangroves, marsh grass for your plants. And if it's a more deeper intervention is required to restore that shoreline, then things like oyster reefs and bear with me for just a second here. Oyster reefs that you see offshore there, seagrass or submerged aquatic vegetation is another thing that can help not only improve the stabilization of those sediments, but also start to hopefully impact water quality as well. So these are the benefits that living shorelines can provide: is reducing that wave energy and erosion, stabilizing the shoreline, and which hopefully will also improve water quality. You're providing more of a surface. If you imagine stormwater running off from land to sea, those natural elements will interrupt that process or that flow and hopefully the plants can take up any excess nutrients that's associated with that storm water and benefit from them. And then providing provision of habitat, we can start to hopefully enhance or regain some of the lost biodiversity and ecosystem function, like nutrient uptake, nutrient cycling, all the filtration, for example, that might be offered by an oyster reef, and ultimately increase resiliency of that strip of coast to storm damage and sea level rise, and sort of having that shoreline mimic more of what a natural shoreline would do. But the reality is we live in developed areas, developed coastlines. And we may be able to do, depending on where you live, we may be able to have what we would call fully natural living shorelines, where it might just be vegetation. And then depending on the energy, the wave energy of that particular shoreline, other things may need to be added to that, whether it's edging to protect those plantings, kind of sill structures made of rock or oyster shell, sill to breakwater structures to reduce wave energy again to protect those plantings. All those green options, all the way to fully gray, where really high wave energy does necessitate a full gray infrastructure approach, like a traditional seawall. And oftentimes we are really sort of in the middle. There's a lot of places where there are options for adding green or nature-based elements to existing gray infrastructure, or what we would call hybrid living shorelines. I'll show a couple examples of that as we move forward in my presentation. But one of the reasons why I mentioned stabilizing the shoreline, and here's a good example of what we would classify as a fully natural living shoreline. This is in Tampa at MacDill Air Force Base. This is actually a pretty old project. So living shoreline practices have been in existence for quite some time at this point in Florida, and certainly earlier in other parts of the country, further up the East Coast. So you see here, this is 2004. The upper photo is prior to the installation of living shoreline. What's not showing over to the left of this photo are oyster reefs that were installed, and then marsh grass was planted in that zone. And then in a couple of years, you can see the expansion of those marsh grasses out towards that oyster reef that was installed. And really, when you see that change, that expansion of that grass, what you're really looking at is the expansion or moving outward of that shoreline edge. And so the widening of that shoreline area and that intertidal zone, which gives you that much more area to buffer that coast, that shoreline from storms and waves. Coming closer to us on the East Coast, this is a really nice living shoreline that you can visit locally. This is the Jupiter Lighthouse Outstanding Natural Area. They did a living shoreline several years ago. They're lining the inlet, so you can imagine there's a lot of impacts from boat wakes. And so they created a more robust structure because of that higher wave energy, using rock to create these breakwater structures, and then planting mangroves and other species behind them. So it's really nice living shoreline. I took a group to tour this area last year. It was a really great time. And they do further in the intracoastal, they are still having erosion issues and are in the process of planning another living shoreline along their eastern flank of this area. So very high energy, a little bit more robust intervention with regards to that rock breakwater, getting closer to more of a hybrid type living shoreline. And in other areas where the wave energy might be a little bit moderate or lower, we can do things like can create oyster reefs here. Using, in this case, this is a new oyster reef module that's been developed by the gentleman you see in the photo is Dr. Mark Clark. He's at the Cedar Key Nature Coast Biological Station in Cedar Key. That's a UF facility. He and Dr. Savannah Berry, one of our my colleagues working in living shorelines, developed this technique. And this is a way to build a smaller breakwater, smaller in relation relative to the rock breakwater structure that you saw in Jupiter. But the dual function of this is to also create oyster habitat as well. And you doing it without having to use plastic materials, which has been the typical approach for a lot of these small scale oyster reef projects, bagging oyster shell in plastic mesh bags that can then be used to make, that are modules that can be then used to make any number of different structures. This is one way to kind of regain that ability to create an oyster reef breakwater structure, but without using plastic. And so this is one example that we've been using throughout the state. And I show this because this is the first example that I wanted to show that how volunteers can get involved. So this was a volunteer effort, not only here locally, as shown in these photos. This is that we had a volunteer work day a couple of years ago at St. Lucie Extension, St. Lucie County Extension. And we built these modules. And so it served as not only a forum to educate the volunteers on oyster reefs, but also to get them engaged in getting their hands dirty and actually building these things. We had a number of volunteers from the community, 4-H, some of our past Master Naturalist Program students. And then we were able to get these things deployed out in the environment. This is Old Fort Park in Fort Pierce. And I was lucky enough to work with some Boy Scouts actually from out of our area, almost in the central part of the state in Oviedo, where they finished constructing these oyster prisms by filling them with shell and capping that off. And the procedure, I didn't get into the procedure, but essentially what we're doing is taking natural jute material, jute mesh material, infusing it with a marine or environmentally friendly concrete. That hardened structure then can become solid. We can fill that structure with oyster shells, as you can see in the upper right-hand photo. Once we close that off, we can then let that cure, and then we can put that out in the environment. And that is right now. This was put out last year, roughly about a year ago, and this is what it looks like later on that year into September. And it's done a pretty good job of stabilizing sediments, although a lot of it has gotten buried and unburied on several cycles due to local storms. So we're still planning on building more of these things to put on top of the original footprint. But this is what it's been doing in our last inspection of it back in October. A lot of that structure is starting to become substrate for oysters that are settling on that from the wild, from our local waters. So that's an ongoing project that volunteers can get involved in. So one thing I will probably have some volunteer days set up by the time my colleagues give their April webinar. So watch out for that. But here's another example of some living shoreline work. Actually, this was just this past weekend, where I did a living shoreline planting with the Environmental Studies Center, which is part of the Martin County School District. And most of that was all planting. It wasn't doing any work in the water where it required permits, but we were working on the upland portion above the mean high water line. And this is going to be an ongoing project as well. And if you're able to scan that QR code in the bottom left-hand corner, you can learn a little bit more about the project. And they are looking for volunteers as well for phase 2 of the project, which is going to be some time, because if we're going to plan some work in the water, we have to get permits for that from the state and the federal agencies like the Army Corps of Engineers. So hopefully you can scan that to learn more about it, and then I can always come back to it if people want to get that link. But these are all of these projects, these 2 projects I've shown are examples of how people in the community can get involved in living shorelines. But the main effort that I wanted to talk with you about today is this project here with my colleagues from the University of Central Florida, Doctors Kelly Kibler and Melinda Donnelly. And one of the things that they're doing is there's a lot of living shoreline work being done in the Indian River Lagoon by a number of different entities, but it's always difficult to determine where we should prioritize our efforts. Where are the more vulnerable shorelines? We can work project by project and know that there is some needs for those particular locations, but in a broader scale, it's kind of difficult to determine regionally where we can devote some of our efforts. So there's a lot of work now trying to develop models that can help predict where we should direct those kinds of restoration efforts. So this is and what's interesting about this project is highlighted there in the middle of the slide there is the shoreline characterization work. So we need to collect data on a wide range of shorelines, and our goal is to map the entire Indian River Lagoon, so that data can then inform the computer modeling that they need to develop. The output that you see below is some of that modeling that's applied to other areas of the lagoon where they have been able to map those shorelines. So the red meaning these are areas that are experiencing severe erosion, where those areas might need more robust interventions, maybe some breakwater structures or larger scale oyster reefs in the water to protect any plantings there and reduce and hopefully prevent the erosion that could be happening on those particular shorelines. So, and that's all informed by data from this shoreline characterization methodology that was developed by Dr. Donnelly and also Dr. Linda Walters at the University of Central Florida, and in conjunction with the St. John's River Water Management District. And it's a very rapid assessment method looking at these particular parameters that you can see listed here. What is the status, or what is the state of that particular shoreline? Does it have a seawall, or is there a rock or riprap structure there? What are the neighboring properties like, and other key things like measuring the slope of that shoreline and the width of that shoreline and existing habitats that might be located there, and other things that could influence erosion at that shoreline, like outfalls, stormwater outfalls. When you have high runoff, those can create erosion right as that water leaves that pipe. And so taking note of all these characteristics in a fairly fine scale, if you think about in terms of the entire lagoon, a reasonably fine grain size as far as mapping. We're doing this at anywhere from 30 to 100 meters, so 100 to 300 feet intervals. And this is it's a pretty simple approach. We're able to map pretty large swaths of coastline in a very short period of time, by focusing on these characteristics and using very simple tools. So it's not high tech equipment that we're using. It's really just really simple stuff. Transect tape, a stadia rod that measures height, um, and so string level you can see there. So pretty simple materials. Small teams of people on each transect. Transect meaning, I'll show you some photos, some images of that. But we're running transect lines or survey lines perpendicular to the shoreline, and noting and mapping features along that transect line. So this is sort of a little cartoon that displays what we're doing with this methodology. We're running along that line, that transect line, is taking note of any habitats that we see or structures that we see, whether it's rock, even cement, sand, all the types of bottom types. What kind of plants are along that transect line? Are there other things like oysters that are along that transect line? And then the distance or width that those features occupy. And then eventually getting the overall slope of that shoreline. How steep is it? How is it a gradual shoreline? And then how wide that intertidal zone is, which I think is really important. And you can see here with this particular image, this is at Walton Scrub Preserve along Indian River Drive. This has been the focus of some of our mapping efforts in St. Lucie County. And you can see each of those yellow lines represent the width of that intertidal zone. And you could see the influence of things like mangroves in widening that zone. And that, I think that's a really important feature to note in this data collection method, because that really tells you a lot about how that particular spot can resist or be more resilient to storms. Really represented by the width of that intertidal zone that's being created by that stand of mangroves right there. This is what the data output looks like. Again, very simple, pencil and paper, measuring tape, and then just walking along that line to not only note what is there. In this case, it's black mangrove nematophores or snorkel roots, and the width of those zones. And we can apply that to a number of different types of shoreline areas where there might be combinations of green and gray infrastructure. And so we've been doing this for probably a little while in the last year as part of an effort that's supported by Florida Sea Grant to funding to the University of Central Florida. We're also doing some fun outreach things associated with this project, in addition to field days going out and measuring their shorelines. Some of the images that we've developed, some living shoreline activities that kids can do in their classrooms or in after-school programs. And also developed some of the graduate students at UCF have actually built a wave tank and have designed curricula around that. If you're going to the Indian River Lagoon Symposium this week, you'll be able to see, they're going to have that out as a demonstration, so you'll be able to see that. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm still getting people entering the waiting room while I'm giving the talk. So anyway, this is just some of the things that we're doing. We will be scheduling more field days, so watch out for that. I'll start advertising that as I get those scheduled. But it's a great simple methodology for us to use because we can get kids out there. These are kids from the Martin County Parks and Rec Department summer program last year that we were collecting data at the Hope Sound National Wildlife Refuge. So just a great way for kids to get out there, learn about what the importance of our coastal environment, what we're trying to do with living shorelines in helping restore some of those environments and make them more resilient, but also to get them collecting data. And that data, again, volunteer-based data, can be used for some of these modeling efforts. This is a different model. This is developed by Dr. Randy Parkinson at the Florida International University. And he's done some amazing work with his team, developing some computer modeling that also overlays sea level rise scenarios. So this is kind of just a dummy slide here. It's not the actual active model, but you can play around with this by scanning, looking, either visiting that web link or scanning that QR code can get you. They've made it public now. And every one of those dots that you can see here, those are the shoreline characterization data that has been collected as part of UCF's effort to characterize shorelines throughout the Indian River Lagoon. So that's a great example, I think, of how citizen science and volunteer-based data can be used to inform fairly high-level modeling efforts to help make predictions about the vulnerability of particular stretches of shoreline, and also overlaying things like sea level rise scenarios. If you, let me guide you through here. You can actually toggle these sea level rise scenarios going ahead from the present to 2030 and moving forward all the way to 2100. Some of the low projections for sea level rise, all the way to the highest and most extreme projections for sea level rise. And if you can see those sort of darker gray lines, those are all transect lines that start from the shoreline edge, informed by UCF's shoreline characterization data, but also going pretty far upland. You can follow those transects here, and it shows you how the slopes of those shorelines change. So it's going to be a good planning tool for not only living shorelines, but any future coastal development that has to account for sea level rise. And I'm going to show you a little bit of what that might look like. This is a sea level rise projection, roughly about 25 years from now in 2050 on the intermediate low projection. These are all from NOAA. And this is maybe about a foot of sea level rise under the intermediate low projection by 2050. And I'll toggle back and forth. You can, if you train your eye, that's a marina. And if you look back, that marina is right here. And moving forward in 2050, you can see that marina is now, all those docks are underwater with 1 foot of sea level rise. So you can see, you can play around with these, and then you can see right here, this is that 1 foot of sea level rise if you see that dark solid line. There's also, but if you get a chance to check this out, I encourage you to do that. It's really great, going to be a great tool, I think. And UCF, Dr. Kibler and Dr. Donnelly has developed a similar computer model using the shoreline characterization data to inform living shoreline planning and design. Other efforts that I'm involved in are some extension education efforts. This is the Florida Master Naturalist Program in Coastal Shoreline Restoration. If you've taken this course, yeah, let people know about it. It's a great course. It's really designed for the general public to learn about living shorelines and the importance of some of the individual habitats that could make up a living shorelines, like oyster reefs, mangroves, marsh grass, those kinds of things. And we have examples of people that have taken the class that are using this knowledge to help participate in local restoration projects like the ones I showed you earlier with the Oyster Prism Project, some of the living shoreline plantings that I shared with you earlier, trying to get their neighbors and their communities to consider more nature-based alternatives to dealing with their stormwater and pollution issues, and just engaging those people to understand the importance of these different coastal habitats. We're gonna be teaching this class again this coming fall, so watch out for that. I'll start advertising it out to the people either on our Facebook site, our UF, IFAS, Martin County, and St. Lucie County Extension Facebook sites, or directly through the emails to you all through the Water Ambassadors. So that's one example of us using extension education for the general public. We're also training contractors in living shorelines. We actually have a course coming up in next month. It's not quite March yet, it almost is. But what we're doing here is training industries, and it could be a wide range of industries, typically marine contractors, landscapers, landscape architects, on living shoreline practices. And all the way, we do a deep dive into permitting living shorelines, which we don't do in the Master Naturalist class. But we've been teaching this class throughout the state starting last year. We got a grant from the Department of Environmental Protection to teach this course in 12 locations, and we're continuing that in 2024. We've got 3 locations left. And our next one is actually, as I mentioned, is next month. If you want to learn more about this course and potentially register for it, you can try. I think this will work. Scan that QR code. I think I also put the I'm not sure if I can put that web link in the chat as well, or scan these as well to learn more about the course itself. And the Florida to learn more about living shorelines in Florida, scan that QR code to learn about that'll get you to the floridalivingshorelines.com website. So, and I can go back to that in a little bit. So I'd like to just thank all the people that I've been partnering with in the last few years on these kinds of efforts, from Dr. Kibler and Drs. Kibler, Donnelly, the graduate student Madison at UCF, and other students as well, besides them, Randy and another member of his team, Levante Juhas, who's done a lot of the work related to their living shoreline suitability model that I just showed you, and local partners in Martin County, Carly Batts, Mike Lynn, that had organized the living shoreline planting that I showed you, that you can get involved in for the future. And then, of course, my colleagues at Florida Sea Grant, who've been involved in not only the Oyster Prism Project, but the Living Shoreline Contractors Course, and all these other partners related to Living Shorelines education, my colleagues at UF, IFAS, Martin County, Yvette and Goodiel and Jennifer Pelham, my colleague in St. Lucie County, Ken Joelle, who I teach the Master Naturalist course with, and really, a warm thanks to our entire scientific and environmental community, represented by the East Central Estuarine Restoration Team, and also local members of the Florida Association of Environmental Professionals and the Native Plant Society. Been able to work with them on a number of different efforts that are related to living shorelines and living shoreline education. And then finally, FDEP for some of the grant support of the projects that I presented today. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Just remember, as I mentioned, this is sort of part 1 of some of the living shoreline work we're doing. Part 2 is in April, where Dr. Kibler and Donnelly and Dr. Donnelly are going to talk a little bit more about the modeling efforts that this data, citizen science data collection methodology, it is how that data is being used for some of their living shoreline suitability modeling efforts. So, and with that, I'll take any questions. I'm going to look in the chat here to see. Oh, Mike, great to see you, and thanks for allowing me to be part of that project. That was a great effort this past weekend. I'm going to go ahead while we're setting up for questions. I'm going to leave that here for you to scan. And then also, I'd also like to share with you our evaluation poll and launch that. So if you can take just a couple minutes to fill that out while I'm answering any questions. So if anybody has anything, I can, let me see. I'm going to scroll up. Let me just expand this out a little bit more. Okay, there we go. Okay, I will definitely let everybody know about future volunteer opportunities. It's going to be, as far as the shoreline characterization, those field days, I'm going to wait until after Dr. Kibler and Dr. Donnelly give their presentation in April. Another question here from Linda: what is the furthest point south you are working in the IRL for shoreline assessment? Right now, the focus is on Martin County. The furthest south we've gone is that those photos I showed you of the Martin County teens, those summer teens working at the Hope Sound National Wildlife Refuge. We can go further south than that, and some of the efforts related to the Jupiter ONA, the Outstanding Natural Area, their plans for their future living shorelines. That's something we can probably that might be a good spot to collect some data prior to their living shoreline restoration. I'll have to work with the manager of that. And oh, great, yeah, thank you, Linda. So I will definitely Wild Blue Sea. I will keep note of that, Linda. And yep, Peter was Peter DeWitt, who is the manager there at the Jupiter Inlet Lighthouse Outstanding Natural Area, was just fantastic to work with when we toured that living shoreline. And I think there is definitely a lot of potential to collect more data, especially along the shoreline that they're planning. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down: wildbluesea.org, and I will reach out. I'll coordinate with Peter first, and then see if we can get a group in there to help collect data along the stretch of shoreline where the new living shoreline is being planned. Great, thank you, Jessica. Great to hear that, and I will definitely let you know. Awesome. And yeah, that would be a great area of focus. A lot of Palm Beach County, mostly in Lake Worth Lagoon, they were really ahead of the game, where they employed UCF's shoreline characterization methodology to collect a lot of shoreline data within Lake Worth Lagoon. So as we move forward in continuing this effort, we were really focused on and still are, Indian River County, St. Lucie County, and Martin County. A lot of the counties further north had their, and that was spoke the images I showed you of Dr. Randy Parkinson's model really spoke to that. A lot of that data had been collected for Brevard County and into Volusia County because UCF does a lot of their restoration work up in the northern part of the lagoon. But there's definitely a lot of gaps and a lot of opportunities to continue collecting this data so that we can hopefully have more of these kinds of scientific modeling efforts, basically these predictive tools to plan living shorelines, to have these available throughout the lagoon so that practitioners that want to do restoration can use those as part of their planning and design for living shorelines. So cool. And yeah, thank you guys for all of your efforts there. Yeah, Linda writes, we have a big challenge with shoreline destabilization due to boat wakes through this narrow part of the IRL. And that really was the primary source of erosion at the Jupiter Inlet Lighthouse, is boat wakes. And also just boaters in general. There was a lot of foot traffic in much of those areas where it's a very steep slope going up from the shoreline, and people were utilizing those areas, and there was a lot of trampling as a result of that. But because it's a traditionally used area for boaters, it was there was Peter had engaged in a lot of stakeholder input, got a lot of stakeholder input to kind of balance those uses. But the new renewed efforts to do more living shorelines are going to focus on those areas that were getting historically trampled. Also past Blowing Rocks, the Nature Conservancy Blowing Rocks area as well. But there's still so I mentioned that a lot of Lake Worth Lagoon had been mapped using UCF's shoreline characterization method, but there are still gaps in Palm Beach County, and the area around the lighthouse is one of those areas, and other areas further up into the intracoastal, like Blowing Rocks. So this is something that will be an ongoing thing, and the really nice thing is we can really probably do a lot of the publicly accessible shorelines quite readily. It's getting into some of those private shorelines is going to be where we might want to also focus some efforts. So if you know anybody that lives in any of those any communities that are in the Indian River Lagoon that would be interested, we would love to hear from them as well, and collect that data. So Jessica, she has a question that says, what are your thoughts on seawalls and revetments on the ocean side of critically eroded barrier islands? Well, that's a really big question. We don't typically have, at least in our area, we don't have seawalls that are at the mean high water line on our open beaches. If that's what you're speaking of, is our sandy beaches. I will put my contact info. I'm going to put my email address here. Thank you for that, Linda. But really, when you're talking about your ocean beaches, it's really a much higher wave energy, and either the main approaches for that are nature based are going to be dune stabilization and beach renourishment, which of course has its own issues as well. But living shorelines really are for, I like to think of living shorelines as for our more lower energy, or you can broadly think of it as our kind of muddy shorelines. So our protected bays, estuaries, tidal river portions of our inland waterways. It's really for, relative to the ocean, much lower energies. And really, living shorelines has really started as an estuary, or areas where fresh and saltwater mix, an estuarine type of restoration. We have living shorelines have their cousins in regard to freshwater bank stabilization or restoration in freshwater reaches, or even aligned, I guess, conceptually aligned efforts to restore pond and stormwater pond banks. But when we're speaking of living shorelines, we're really speaking about shoreline restoration efforts in our estuaries. So open ocean beaches, that's an entirely different animal, which in most cases in our area, we don't have a lot of seawalls and revetments that are, maybe they're further upland past the mean high water mark, but not typically not right at the mean high water mark. So there are examples in, I recall, I used to live in Virginia, and there was one community where they would build these seawalls right on the beach to protect their properties. And really what they were doing was enhancing erosion around their homes. And if the neighbors in the neighbors' properties that might not have had those structures in place. So those were definitely a problem. Yeah. All right. All right. If I'll hang on. Oh, I see a new message here. Yep. Yeah, what Jessica writes, yeah, erosion exacerbated, and residents don't understand where their beach is gone. So this is, you're right, that's been an issue in your area. Yeah, Jessica, I'd really love to talk to you more about that. We had someone from the city of Tequesta actually take our living shorelines for marine contractors course back in October, when we offered it here in Jensen Beach. And they were taking it to inform themselves, educate themselves about whether or not they would consider some local permitting or regulations around living shorelines, hopefully to encourage or facilitate that practice. In a lot of our local governments, county governments, sometimes they will have local regulations surrounding shoreline development. Martin County has their own living shoreline permit, which is really which really facilitates that living shoreline practice and encourages people to utilize nature-based and green elements to help stabilize their shorelines versus a seawall or other gray infrastructure types of approaches. So hopefully we'll see more of that throughout the state of Florida. More incentivization of people considering nature-based solutions to stabilizing their shorelines. Cool. Thank you, Jessica. Great to thank you for attending. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stop recording. But if anybody has any questions later, feel free to email me or reach out to Lisa or myself, and we'd be happy to continue that conversation. And then also, please don't forget about our other offerings starting next month. Next month, Amy Eason from Martin County is going to talk about the county's efforts in stormwater management. So I think that's going to be a great talk. And then, of course, in April, Doctors Kelly Kibler and Melinda Donnelly are going to continue the conversation about living shorelines and their research efforts to optimize living shoreline practice by developing better predictive tools to plan and design living shorelines. So I think I've got everything in the chat. I'm going to go ahead right now and stop recording.